It first film was a very experimental film by a Egyptian filmmaker. His name is Muhammad Bayoumi. It was 1923. And that was like a fun film. He was experimenting with the medium. Let's say first animation film. Also was a play movie. It's like mixing between traditional animation and a moving image like from films, songs. And it was also in the 60s by Ali and Qusam Mohib, for example, in Egypt as well.
Were these received well at the time?
No. And
Yeah. Welcome to the Afikra podcast. My name is Mikey Muhanna. Today on this series, I have Haytham Nawar, who is the director of the Diriyah Art Futures, which is this incredible center based in Riyadh focusing on new media art. Haytham is a longtime friend of the program, and it's great to have you back. Welcome.
Welcome, Mikey. Good to see you again.
Okay, so I'm going to start with a really basic question. What are art futures? Please walk me through this idea of like new media art. What is this thing? Somebody who hears this title, Diriyah Art Futures, I don't think they even like understand these three words in a phrase. Walk me through what it actually means.
Okay, so if I start really with the name, so
Yeah.
Diriyah is the city of Diriyah, which is in the suburb of Riyadh. And it's actually the oldest city in terms of like Najd, and it's a foundation of the first Saudi kingdom that it started actually in the mid-18th century. And it's actually one of the major, I'd say, mega project of the interest of the development in the kingdom. And the Diriyah Art Futures, so that's the first where is the location, which is Diriyah and part of the brand. And then Art Futures, so it is actually an art center. It's a research, it's an educational, and it's art center that actually the interest and the scope of work is actually the intersection between art, science, and technology, and the future of art in general. So this is simply when you say the art future, so that's actually a center, a research and educational art center that actually involve in the intersection of art, science, technology, and its relationship to the community. And the mean by the community is actually the Saudi community, the North Africa, Middle East, and actually the global community as well. I hope that explained a little bit there.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a great place to start. Like a lot of people, including myself, would have a hard time understanding why like a center that merges art, science, and technology is a priority, is an actual national priority. Like walk me through how that makes sense.
So
Help me understand it.
There is still two major points that I would like to really explain. So one, it's why the art futures here now in Saudi, in the kingdom, in this region. So the new media art and digital art, so like as I mentioned, explained it as art, science, and technology, it's quite relatively in the region is new. And none of our academic institution, which is, as you know, I'm a faculty at the American University in Cairo, and I've been in academia since more than 25 years now. And none of our academic programs in the Arab world have a formal academic degree in the new media art and digital art. So there's some trials and some are university, some courses taught here and there, but not necessarily like a full program of new media art, which is new media art, theoretically speaking, is the future education of art. So it actually related to the interdisciplinary approach, intersection between different type of disciplines, and as well involving like cutting edge new technology and so on. So also art schools in Saudi in general, there are not really a lot of fine art school, historically speaking. So part of the vision is really not to focus of what we missed as much as actually to focus of the future. So when we talk about art and art education, so it's the future of art education. Here comes the idea of really investing in future art education programs, which tackle the concept of new media and digital art. And it will be in the heart of the kingdom, which is a Diriyah. It's the heart of really of the kingdom. And in this really very important time in the history of the region, that to start from here and to expand everywhere else. So that's really the need and the necessity of such a project.
So who's in the building? Like who's attending? Who, like what, besides the center? I mean, the center looks beautiful, but obviously any art school, it's like main contents are the people who are there. So who's actually there?
And so at the center, as you said, it's very beautiful. It's designed by Scattarella Society, which is an Italian-based firm based on a competition. So it's a beautiful building. Who's inside the building is actually the team, so the staff that we have, as well as we have because as I mentioned, it's an educational program. So we have actually it's educational center. So I said we have our educational programs, which the major one is, it's a long-term program called the Emerging Artist Program, which for emerging artists for the region, and I can speak about this later. So we have our emerging artist programs. They are actually all here. And we have as well our exhibition area, which is around 2,000 square meters, which is, again, open for public. We have the people coming in. And we also have, I mean, I can talk later about the programming, but we have the public audience in general. They come and visit. So, but the moment is mostly the emerging artists and the team.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk, maybe that's a good place to start with the emerging artists and that whole program. I mean, the first time we met was within the context of your academic work and your role as an educator. So let's maybe like have a little bit of a pedagogical discussion about this program that's focused on emerging new media artists. Like pedagogically, what is actually different about that? What is the design of it with an eye to the future? Like what's going on?
Okay, so let me explain a little bit about the nature of the program here. So as you said, I come from academia, which means universities, curriculum, degrees, accreditation, which we tried to completely avoid such model. So we focus here what we can call it informal education, or we can call it alternative education. Because for example, the program we have here in DAC for education, it's a 1 year long program for emerging artists. The emerging artists, they apply through an open call process. We have a jury. They select artists based on portfolios in the field of preferably in the field of new media art. They have interest, they have practice, or maybe have relevant study on the field. And when they apply, the jury select 12 candidates, and the 12 candidates will have a full year support by the Ministry of Culture. What they will have, again, as an artist myself, I have the dream of any artist type of support, starting by theoretical, conceptual, technical classes, like for lectures and workshops and master classes from people from all over the world, with a focus on the content that comes from the region. And then that's for 3 months. And then you will have, and the next 3 months, we will have a mentorship, one-to-one mentorship within streams, very particular streams that the student choose, and also the mentors come with the portfolio in the same stream with the students will choose. So the mentorship one-to-one for 3 months as well. And then at the same time, we assign a curator, in-house curator, that will work with the students, and also a production manager. So they start actually with the whole process, with the first proposition for a project. They start with the whole development from an early stages. And then the next phase, which the third phase, is actually the production phase, where they work closely with the production manager and the curator. So the curator help of shaping the whole show, the whole concept about the project, the exhibition itself, And the production manager, as you know, every artist needs a production manager for helping them to set budgets, to outsource what is needed for the work, to make it professionally happen, have a right crew or team. And then it comes the final phase with the exhibition. So the curator would curate an exhibition for the candidate, the emerging artist, and also the mentors together. And then we help them with promoting the exhibition. So we export the exhibition to sister institutions and entities abroad that they will actually have a second or third version of the work. Or it could be also film festivals. So, as I said, it's a dream incubator program. It's actually helping them to, from the start until the final professional artwork to be exhibited.
Is it inspired by any other organizations?
Yes, that's true. So we worked in developing the curriculum with Mikey Muhanna. It's a school in the northwest of France. It actually started this long time ago. One of the early schools in France in the field of new media art. So when we initiated the program, we didn't really want to start from scratch. So we worked with them to develop a curriculum. But actually, as I said, the module is a little bit different, but also our content is focused on the region.
The people who are taking this emerging new media artists, are they all from Saudi? I mean, who's actually applying to be a part of the emerging program?
The call was quite open for international, for everyone. But we try, of course, to give priority and I would be honestly said that to give support more to the people from the region. So the students we have from Saudi, from Bahrain, from Egypt, Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, from Palestine, from Jordan. We also have internationals from South Africa, from the UK, from South Korea. So it's really very diverse pool of candidates.
Can we zoom out about like the bigger picture vision? Like Inta, your work, like when you're doing your day-to-day job, you took this job, you came from Egypt to do this job. Like, what is the bigger picture vision for what you guys are doing as a hub, as a initiative? You're bringing all these artists. Like, what's the end goal?
The end goal is actually, I would say it in a again, as a scholar, maybe as a scholar, it's contributing to the new knowledge. It's contributing with new knowledge. We will try to empower younger generation with all means that they can actually contribute to the society. So it's through education, alternative education. They can share ideas. They can share artworks. They will actually contribute to the global community with what they are doing. They are discussing their ideas and their subject matters, and they actually writing a new history. Because again, like art and design, generally speaking, especially for new trends or new movements in art, we don't really hear or read a lot about the Arab world. And again, that's the momentum that to rewrite again the history of new media and digital art and highlight what's happening in this region with the support of all means. And our scope is not really only Saudi. We focus on Saudi, focus in North Africa, Middle East, and focus we support the whole everybody.
Yeah. Do you have? I feel like a lot of this stuff, a lot of the work that you guys are doing must be coming up against a lot of like skepticism, right? I'm sure there's like some sort of like, well, like I like art, but not this like techie art. Like I like this, but it's not this is not what I imagine when I think of like quote unquote art. This is not what I imagine when I think of the region. This is not what I imagine when I think of Saudi. This is not what I imagine when I think of like blank, 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 blank. Have you experienced that type of skepticism or pushback from the various audiences?
It's not Yeah, it's actually the other way around, if I may say so.
Yeah.
Especially that when you talk about what kind of art or the genre, what we are talking about.
Yeah.
Because, modern art have a lot of like question mark, especially for audience in our region. And the dilemma of the white cube. Actually, working with new media, digital art is quite the opposite. It's actually very accessible, very friendly, plays on the concept of interaction and curiosity. So we really attract people without really making a lot of efforts, because technology in general it's an everyday life use. Everybody have a smartphone or a tablet, but also there is the interactivity. It's how people they get really curious to touch or to move in front of a camera or a sensor or play around the projection and then see a big size, the screen. Then they get curious. Still, it's art in the end, and artists, they share their ideas. And people, they easily interact and also immerse sometimes and question sometimes and think sometimes, which this is the reason of it. So it is actually, we use the advantage of new technology in everyday life to really share ideas with people.
When did the genre of new media art start?
Globally speaking, or in the Arab world?
Let's do both. Let's start globally and then start in the Arab world.
So new media, generally speaking, it's about the new medium. It's about the new technology that's used. So there is historians, they said that actually it started with the invention of some cameras in the 19th century. And the modern historian, they said, no, it actually was not photography, it was actually more about with the film medium, because it was new. So, but as a term, like engraved in the history books, it's in the 60s, when people, they start to define using the moving image as an art medium, not to be used through like cinemas or it actually to be put in a gallery, to be in a museum using the moving images. I think one of the early artists that actually, his early work that was part of an exhibition in the 60s was Nam June-paik. It's a South Korean artist. And people, they always refer to him like one of the very early new media artists, especially because of the medium itself and how it was used. So that's in terms of like globally speaking. And of course, you can also say, complementary to the idea of having a new media art using the medium moving image, it's also the change completely in the history of art with Marcel Duchamp in 1959, I think 1960. It was also come with the conceptual art, which is taking the art from a completely the traditional format and to what was at that time, conceptual art was like the ready-made concept, but also Marcel Duchamp, the first actually investigating the concept of moving image in a painting in one of his early works. So that's the global history of new media. The Arab world is a completely different story because, again, practitioners, like early practitioners experimenting in new mediums or new media, they didn't really think that that's actually art. And they didn't think that actually this could be exhibited. So I am actually with a friend and a colleague of mine curating the second exhibition of that, which we can actually talk about it later. Also, it's called The Archaeology of New Media Art in the Arab World, which we are trying to dig down in the history and see who are the early practitioners in the field. So I'll give you this very quick example. If we're talking about moving image, it first a film was a very experimental film by a Egyptian filmmaker. His name is Muhammad Bayoumi. It was 1923. And that was like a fun film. He was experimenting with the medium. So if that was put in the global history of new media, that would be one of the early examples, 1923. Or let's say first animation film, also was a play movie. It's like mixing between traditional animation and a moving image, like from films, songs. And it was also in the 60s by Ali and Hussam Mohib, for example, in Egypt as well.
Were these received well at the time?
No. And
Yeah.
no, because it wasn't following. That's what I said, the experimenting. It was not really following the traditional career path. I mean, afterward they received recognition, but even they didn't receive recognition in the field. They didn't receive the recognition in the field of new media. They received recognition in the film industry, like the early long film, the early long Egyptian film by Mohammed Bayoumi, or the early experimentation, not experimentation, the early animation film by Arab/Egyptians, Ali and Hussam Mohib. But I give you an example. So Ali and Hussam Mohib, they went more to the commercial side of it. And for example, also there was Ihab Shakir, he did experimental animation in, if I recall, in the 50s, I think. And he did only 3 films, and he didn't continue in animation at all. So the problem was that I don't want to translate this to they didn't really receive it well, but they didn't continue in the same.
Yeah, it wasn't made for this. It didn't hit popular audiences.
Yes. And also the technology of, because this is very important when you talk about media and technology of the West, it's very different than the technology of the so-called the East or our region. It's about always inventing technology. It's about the necessity and implementing it from artists. It's also about affordability and, again, the necessity of it and for what reason actually you're using it. And when you talk politically, sociopolitically, economically, and culturally, it's completely different. Then you expect the history is different. So in a very abstract way.
Yeah. When did it, let's continue into sort of like the digital, a little bit of the digital revolution. When did it sort of move into, how did the genre expand in the region in the 60s and 70s and 80s? Like, who are some of the pioneering artists from the region who were dabbling in the genre?
Again, the exploding of the genre, it's about recognition of the genre. So recognition in the genre came in the 90s, actually, in the Arab world. It didn't really come earlier. So in the Arab world, when people, they start using video art, or like, again, moving image as a medium in work, that was actually in the 90s. There were, of course, a lot of people, they worked earlier with using the medium, but it wasn't, again, recognized. So from 90s and then 2000, it's the explosion, the recognition, many exhibitions, many biennales that included the work. So pioneers in the field, not necessarily, again, in the same time of explosion of the new art, the new media in the Arab world, but like, as I mentioned, Mohammed Bayoumi from Egypt. We have also Halim al-Daba. It's also a sound artist, Egyptian, that he moved to the US. You have, of course, also from the 80s, Samia Halabi. You have as well, and of course there was much younger generations. Akram Zakari. You have as well Walid Rad. I don't want to, of course, forget someone, but I just give you a different generational thing from the pioneering the field in the Arab world.
These people, so like Sami Halabi, Walid Ra'ad, Akram Zadari, these people, do you think in the 80s and 90s, they were thinking of themselves as new media artists?
I don't think so. Actually, I conducted interviews with the three of them, this three particular folks. And I mean, because really the auto artists, they don't really classify themselves, especially that type of artist.
Exactly.
So
first of all, that's the first thing.
Exactly. So Samia Halabi didn't classify herself as like, she was drawing, she was painting, and then she learned coding, and then she started experimenting with computer art. But they didn't really classify themselves. They were just artists, and they're using the medium of their time and the most comfortable medium to convey a message to the audience. So I don't think it is think of themselves that way.
Yeah. Um, okay, so I like this historical timeline for a second. So as we get into after the 90s, when this gets sort of classified, how has that changed into the 21st century? There's obviously like an explosion of compute power that happened in the early part of the 21st century, and the smartphone and all this stuff that changes the accessibility of technology. Um, how did that affect the genre in the region over the last 25 years? Are there just an explosion of artists all over the place?
Unfortunately, not. It did attract more the audience list than actually the practicing artists. So it was more of because again, artists they need, and that's why the reason of having DAF, for example, artists they need education, artists they need platforms, artists they need collectors. So the ecosystem doesn't exist in the Arab world. And so that's why we try to build it and be part of it. So you don't have education. Most of the names that I mentioned, or younger generation, even they are self-taught, and or they studied abroad. And then when it comes to platform, there have been approaches of like having exhibitions for new media art, or including actually new media artworks in bigger exhibitions. Mostly was in Cairo and Cairo Biennale, and then afterwards there was Cairo-Tronica. In Tunis there is Interference. Also in Morocco there was another exhibition, but that's very minimal in relatively speaking when you speak about the Arab world. So there is no platform to exhibit such type, and there is no galleries until the moment to speak of new media artwork. So. And then you talk about collection and museums or personal collectors. People, they would like to invest more in paintings or sculpture. Museums as well. None of the museums in the Arab world, they actually have an interest in collecting new media artworks, except only recently in the last 10 years. And so the ecosystem didn't exist. So unfortunately, it didn't really help the artists, but it just, as I mentioned, there's more accessibility to the audience, but not to the artist.
Yeah. I want to tie this into the inaugural exhibition, which is titled Art Must Be Artificial, Perspectives of AI in the Visual Arts. Maybe let's talk a little bit about that and how the curation of that sort of maps onto what we've been talking about.
So, first exhibition is called Art Must Be Artificial. It's ينبغي للفن أن يكون اصطناعيا. It's an exhibition curated by a French curator, very well known in the field of new media arts, one of the early curators as well. His name is Jérôme Notre. And the exhibition is based on the idea of a history of computational art until AI. So there is an early works of first artists, internationally speaking, experimented with code art, like to code and work on the computers and then have prints out. Very famous artists such as Haytham Nawar and others. Until the newly generative art, which using AI, and also in the last generation, the curator also merged with some artists from the region as well, especially Saudis. So it's a very good historical introduction to the scene here in Saudi, that people know that what they see as new digital art is not very new. It is actually old from the 60s, according to the global history of new media art. So it's really very interesting exhibition, and we received a lot of acknowledgement about the quality of the exhibition.
Can you tell some of the artists who are featured?
As I mentioned, some like internationally speaking, some as like Vera Molnar, Miguel Chevalier, Jean Girard, and that's from internationally speaking from the region. And Saudi, we have Leila Shireen Sak. We have from Egypt, We have Haytham Nawar from Tunis. We have Daniel Saleh, Tolwa Al-Hamoud, Nasser Al-Shimimi from Saudi. So those actually the type of artists we have in Atmosphere.
What's cool about some of these names, like Lulu Al-Hamoud versus like Layla, they're like very different generations. So it's not exclusively, artists from who are all born in the 90s, which is nice. Because like typically you would imagine like, okay, it's going to be about AI. Somebody thinks, okay, this is going to be about AI. It's all going to be like millennials and Gen Z exclusively. So I like that it's actually taking a relatively long view on it.
No, I said like it's the example you mentioned is very interesting because Lulua and Layla, again, generationally speaking, they're not young, sorry to say that, but also the art practice is also very established, and interestingly, they use actually AI, complete different approach, and you can actually, when you come to the exhibition, you see both examples. You see how profound actually is the field. And how diverse the way how you generate art with AR, let's say.
I'm curious what surprised you about the public's reaction to the exhibition, since it's sort of a new entrant in the art scene in the region.
I mean, the public is very very diverse. So we have two different type of public. So we have the people that are actually interested in art in general in Riyadh or in Saudi. So they come to visit the exhibition at the opening because they're interested in the field, they're interested in the art scene, and those have more understanding to the content, to the medium, and they know, of course, some of the artists. So that's the traditional type of audience that everybody knows in any art scene. And then we have, on the other side, the people that they don't know much about art. They don't go to museums. They don't go to galleries. However, because the area is super busy and especially in the weekends, and like it's very famous for outing for families. But then when we pass by the building itself is a landmark. So they get curious by the building. And then we have some video projection mapping for artworks like Miguel Chevalier or Jean Girard on the terrace. Big, huge artworks, moving images. It requires interaction. Also, some 3D printed big sculptures. So they get curious. And this type of audience, they start by taking pictures, and then they ask questions, and then they get curious, they get to the door and ask people, they come in, they buy the ticket and they come in. And they post about it. And that's the best story of it. It's really nicely, not the type of audience that you know, that's actually the one there you don't really expect it. The one you are trying to approach, the one you are trying to build, like to outreach, they come naturally because of, again, the curiosity of the technology.
Yeah.
So actually the public audience are really amazing here, to be honest.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about AI and some of the sort of the generative AI. Is this an existential like threat that you guys talk about internally when you in circles with artists? Like I'll give you an example. I'll give you a silly example. A couple weeks ago, I posted on Instagram this like fake like New Yorker style cartoon about about life in Lebanon. Okay. And I created it using AI, and I was like, this is just for my friends, it's for on my stories. And so I used it. I typed into some generative AI thing. This is exactly what I want. I want it in the style of the New Yorker, and it made it. And I adjusted the caption and I uploaded it. And a friend of mine who's an artist was like, Mikey, this is so offensive. How dare you post something like this? Like, you have so many friends who are artists and illustrators and designers. Like, how could you possibly be using generative AI? Like, ask a friend to illustrate it. Like, illustrate it. Like, what are you doing? You know? And obviously, like, I know that this is a problem, but whatever. I just was like, oh, it's not a big deal. Internally in classrooms at DAF, is this like an existential threat that you guys are talking about? Like, this is the end of art. This is the end of artists.
No, absolutely. It's completely the opposite. Actually, as you know, we have software. We buy software for students, like for the emerging artists, that they can use also for artists to help artists to produce the work. We buy software for AI. They have actually Midjourney, they have ChatGPT, they can use it as exactly a tool. It's a tool. There is the ethical side of AI, which that's the most important part of AI, but not the technology itself, and the threat comes from the technology. That's my personal opinion. And I mean, I've been to this discussion, not just only in DAF, because I mentioned DAF, we actually buy software and we allow the emerging artists to use them, but and staff as well. But in being into discussion in academia, especially like in bigger institutions, universities, and how AI is implemented within the educational systems. And so it's at the end, it's a tool to ease and to allow and to expedite the process of what you're doing, whether as an artist or any other profession. However, the ethical part of it is the problem. The people who have to acknowledge that they are using AI, and AI is using other people's work, and you don't know for others people that AI is using their work, and that's the tricky part of it.
Yeah. So AI is like this. It's almost like this tool to like keep your hands clean from the theft.
I was actually expecting you to say, "The thief, AI, the thief," without it's the in-betweener. Yeah. You don't do the job yourself. You hire someone to do the job yourself. For you.
You know a guy. You know a guy who can get the job done.
Exactly. But this is when you use this to differentiate. This is when you use the public domain for AI. But also you can feed the data yourself, which that's why it makes a big difference when somebody using machine learning and AI in his project. When you give the data, you feed the data that actually the AI will use to generate whether text or image. So you are using your own stuff, just making it faster and maybe better quality of it. But when you are using the public domain, like using the internet as a public domain, which is actually using other people's work, and then you give it yourself.
Yeah. What do you think DAF looks like in 10 years?
Oh, I've been discussing this actually yesterday with friends in a funny way, because I think DAF will be because the discussion is how to measure a success of DAF. It's really how we will create impact, how we will have much more artists participating in the regionally, internationally, in exhibitions, events, also acquired, how we will change the narrative, and we will enable people to do more stuff, how we create opportunities. So that in 10 years, I hope it will be a hub for by productivity, a hub for new media arts, not just only in the Saudi or the region, but internationally speaking.
Is this like, is the goal, let's actually talk a little bit about the residency, because the residency is an interesting program insofar as it's like not only giving people coaching and space, but it's also giving people a place to live. Tell us a little bit about the residency, and then I'm curious how that actually feeds into the broader mission.
So as I mentioned, we have the long-term program, which is the Emerging Artists program, and that's for 1 year, and that's fully covered. But also we have a residency program for more established artists, we have 5 studios in-house that for artists and scholars, that mostly established ones, that they can actually come conduct research, do art projects, like um, get more involved in the area, Riyadh, the region, and again, enable them on the ground to do relevant work to what's happening here. So the residency is, and also, of course, they will have an open studio. Part of our mandate to publish works, we can also publish the work of the scholars, but also connect them to other academic institution, research institution, to the community here. We can also we have the resident artists to give talks and master classes for the public, but also for our emerging artists. So it's a foreign module. That's why we named it, actually, we branded as Mazza in Arabic. It's the foreign, because also we have a farm in Daf, which is very nice, our farm. So it's the residency, it's a forum. And again, to help the whole community, from the emerging artists to the art scene in Saudi and beyond.
Super cool. The last question before we wrap up is, what are you most worried about? Like, as a director, right? You're like, you have to be strategic about some of the challenges. What are you most worried about? What is the gauge that you're looking at off to the side saying, okay, this we have to make sure we do correctly? Like, this is the hardest thing to do. We have to make sure we do that right.
I mean, in theory, also in practice, actually, is to sustain its sustainability, is to sustain the model. So we have a lot of success. People, they love the first exhibition. Emerging artists program is like, really, artists are happy. Everybody's interested, but you need to sustain this story, and you need to make much better. You have to do an assessment and then evaluation, and then do better than what you actually started with. Which normally the beginnings are the big thing. So you need to sustain that success. So the next exhibition needs to be better than the first exhibition. The next cohort of the emerging artist person, they will have to learn from our mistakes and do much better with them. The residency, we need to extend and extend and extend. So that's I would not say worry, but healthy concern.
Yeah, like constant growth versus like sustainable life.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, constant growth it's dangerous. Amazing. So I can't wait to come. I haven't seen the space yet, so I'm excited to come by, and hopefully we'll get to meet some of the artists and learn more about what you guys are doing.
I can't wait as well that you can come and see the space. You can meet the artists. You meet the team of DAF. You see our farm, Mazla. I think it would be great to have you here, Mikey.
Yalla, can't wait. Okay, everybody, check out Diriyah Art Futures online. You can look up Haytham as well. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mikey. It was a pleasure.